We are live. Excellent. I like to do a little song and dance number to get us in while people catch the video to tune in. But yes, hello everyone who will be watching now and in the future. Welcome to One More Page's holiday office hours, where today Amber and I'm Rebecca. If you don't know, hello. We are going to be talking about, we called it the Overactive Book Club Reader, but it's basically like books that we really love that you can really sink your teeth into. Like if you brought this to a book club, it would be one of those types of books where you wouldn't stop talking about it for an hour or 2 hours or however long y'all's book clubs go. I don't know.
Depending on how the wine's doing.
Yeah, exactly. Depending on whether there's wine at this book club or not. So Amber and I both have a bunch of books that we're going to talk about. Amber, I think you also have some recommendations from some of our other colleagues. And yeah, do you want to go first or should I go first?
You can go first. I just wanted to, when we're done, I'm going to put all of the books that we talk about, plus we had extras that I know we're not going to get to today. So I will put all of those on the event page on the calendar so people can easily find them. I may even drop some links into the comments while we're talking too. So
Smart.
Yeah.
Smart. Cool. So I guess I will go first.
And if anybody has questions, if anyone has questions, this is why we're really here. It's also to answer questions. So you can drop those in comments or in the chat if you're on YouTube. So all right, now.
My Aunt Susie has read Gentleman in Moscow and Where the Crawdads Sing. Please help me. We got you. Just drop it in the comments. So the first book that I want to talk about is, I'm probably the last bookseller to have read it, but it's Girl, Woman, everything is backwards. Girl, Woman, Other by Bernardine Evaristo, which most of you probably know. It won the Booker Prize in 2019. It shared the prize with The Testaments by Margaret Atwood, which, you know, we can argue later if that was a necessary thing to have two winners of the Booker Prize, but that's a whole other video. But I adore this book. It is a multi-voiced, almost like, I call it a symphony of voices, because I think there's like 12 or 14 different characters that we hear from over the course of about a century of time. And they're all Black women, and there's one non-binary character who are living in Britain and living abroad, and how their lives and their experiences of being Black and being British interact in unexpected ways. And you know, what Bernardine Evaristo does so very well is that you read one character's perspective on an event, and then maybe 2 or 3 characters later, you get a window into that event that totally turns it on its head, and you sort of see the complete opposite and opposite of what could have happened. And it's so wonderfully written, and it reads really well. I think Bernardine Evaristo is also a poet. So like the language is really, really, it flows together very, very well. And I started this and I was like, okay, this is really great. I'm enjoying this. And then like halfway through, I just like couldn't put it down. And I think this is a kind of book that, like, even if you've already read it, if you read it a second time, you'll find new things every time you read it. So thank you, Lelia. Lelia turned off the air filter that was running right underneath me, which is a clever thought. But I really, really, really recommend Girl, Woman, Other by Bernardine Evaristo. And it's in paperback. All of these are in paperback of mine, except one hardcover wild card at the end that we'll get to. So.
All right. And I have not read that, and now I want to read that.
Amber, it's so good. It's so good. I'll lend you a copy.
Okay. So I do have one hardcover. The others I'm going to talk about are all paperback as well. So I'll do that one first. This one, In 5 Years, by Rebecca, I think it's Searle.
I think it's Searle, yeah.
Came out this year, which, so, you know, some people may have heard of it, but some people may not have, since it's such a weird year to be able to just get out and see the new books that came out while we've all been at home. So in 5 years, very quick read, not very long, lots to talk about. So the main character, Danny, in this one has like this awesome life. Everything's all set up. She's got the fiance and the awesome apartment and about to get a great new job. And she ends up having this dream that in 5 years, in the dream, she wakes up 5 years later in a different apartment, different bed, different ring, different man. So, she goes on with her life and everything's fine. And she's like, it's just a crazy dream. And then 4.5 years later, she meets that man that was in her dream. And so the rest of the book is about what happens. I heard that Anna read this and thought it was a happily ever after. There are tears. I did cry. So, but awesome and great for conversation. So
sometimes you need a good cry, man. The last book I'm going to talk about, I definitely cried. Probably in a lot of these I cried. It's fine.
Dolly Parton has that thing, right? She had the thing with Stephen Colbert this week. It was like tears are, cleansing.
Yeah. Also guaranteed to make me cry. Dolly Parton all the time.
Always.
So the next book that I have to talk about is The Reckless Oath We Made by Brynn Greenwood. And this was my favorite book of 2019 when it came out in hardcover. And it is in paperback and it is gorgeous. There's this like medieval like tapestry in the grass. It's so good. But this book is utterly unique. It is so hard to describe concisely, but I'm going to try my best. And the best way that I come up with to describe this book is it is a gritty Kansas noir meets a medieval fairy tale is what I've got. It follows Z, who is this sort of tough as nails Kansas woman. She's fallen on hard times. She had a car accident several months before the beginning of the book, and like as a result of that has really chronic pain issues, and like she's barely holding it together. And it follows her and then Gentry, who is a young man who is an honest to goodness knight. Like he has the armor, he has the swords, he has the code of chivalry, and he also hears voices that tell him to be Z's protector. And so it is this very like crooked, complicated love story between these two like very different but very passionate people. And it all sparks off. There's an abduction in Z's family that sort of sends them on this propulsive kind of thriller plot also. But it's really about
what section, where do we keep this? Where do we shelve this?
This is in fiction. Yeah.
Seems like it could be in like 3 different places.
Exactly. And that's why it's so hard to classify this book, but it's so good. Brynn Greenwood is such a great author. Her first book, All the Ugly and Wonderful Things. It's either All the Wonderful and Ugly Things or All the Ugly and Wonderful Things. It's one of those two. But our fiction book group did that one and like had a really good conversation about it, because Brynn Greenwood is one of my favorite contemporary writers, and she like packs so much into her books that shouldn't fit together, but she does it so well. And like I said, this was my favorite book of last year. I really highly recommend it. It was one of the few books that I finished and I wanted to start over again immediately, which doesn't usually happen. So that one is The Reckless Oath We Made by Brynn Greenwood. And there's a little blurb that says perfect for book clubs. So there you go.
All right. My next one. Fleischman is in trouble. I'm going to do this one. Taffy Brodesser Ackner.
What a
journalist. But this is fiction. And I think people either really love this book or really hate it, which I think always makes for a really good book club discussion. So definitely, it's a family drama. It's a really focused on the beginning on the now ex-husband, the recently divorced couple. with a couple of kids, and the ex-wife goes off for like a weekend and then never comes back. Well, yeah, she doesn't come back in the beginning. So, and it's so hard to describe because at some point in the middle of the book, it sort of twists and your perspective on both of them changes. So another one, I think whenever I have a love it or hate it kind of book, I figure like that's just awesome for discussion. So I think this came out last year, so it's still pretty new. But yeah, definitely another good one to pick up.
Awesome. Yeah, that's definitely a book that I've heard people rave about it. And then I've also heard people just like totally rant about it. And I agree that those are often the most exciting book club books.
Yes.
And also for those of you watching, just a reminder, if you have any questions for us, recommendations, people that you're shopping for, drop them in the comments and we will try our best to answer them. My next book that I want to talk to y'all about, it actually came out this year, but it's an early paperback release. So it came out in February in hardcover, but it has just been released in paperback. And it is Things in Jars by Jess Kidd. And it's gorgeous. Look at that. The gold foil. Oh my goodness. Sorry. I love a good cover design. And this book is another one of the, my favorite things are books that blur the genre lines just a little bit. And this book it's part detective story mixed with some Irish folklore sprinkled on top and really like twisty slice of Victorian London. And it's about an Irish lady sleuth whose name is Bridie Devine, which, what a great name. And she is hired to investigate the kidnapping of an aristocrat's secret daughter, who there's rumors swirling about this daughter that like maybe she's not entirely human, like something is up with this kid that has attracted the attention of like all of the collectors, like the curiosity collectors, like the carnival sideshow runners, and like a lot of people are after this kid. And so Bridie has to figure out what happened and rescue her from, being kidnapped. And it's so delightful. It's so wonderful. The character of Bridie is, she doesn't take any nonsense, but she also has a really big heart to her. And she's a very unique character that I don't think we get a lot of in either mystery or historical fiction. And it's so delightful. I listened to this on audiobook and it was another one where I was like, oh, it's 4 a.m. Maybe I should try and sleep some. But instead I finished the book. So really, really recommend this one. It was an Indie Next pick. I love it. I will throw it at everyone this holiday season. Highly recommend picking it up. Again, that's Things in Jars by Jess Kidd. God, look at that cover. It's so good.
All right, I'm going to take a quick break from mine. And so I asked Trish and Sally both for some recommendations for this. So I'm just going to share. These were Sally's, 2 that she recommended. The Island of Sea Women by Lisa C. So like I said, I have not read these, but just to let you know, Sally said this is fiction, but it's based on a real group of women, so historical fiction. And it's about a group, all-female diving collective in World War II. So
that's really cool.
She said one of her book clubs read it, and they just had an awesome conversation. So she wanted to make sure that people got to see this one too. Another awesome paperback. So yeah,
with the foiling on the cover. Oh, it's so pretty.
All right, and then her other one was The Silent Patient by Alex. And I'm so bad with the names sometimes. I don't even know. Yeah,
I think it's Michaelides.
I should have practiced that first, probably. But so she said that this is a thriller that's definitely good for a mystery book club. And I just thought I'd read one of the blurbs on it from Blake Crouch, who wrote Dark Matter, which I did love. He said it's destined to go down as one of the most shocking, mind-blowing twists in recent memory. Makes me want to read it.
Ooh.
So yeah, Silent Patient. Thank you, Sally.
Yeah, thank you, Sally. Excuse me, I had to burp on camera. How rude of me. So my next pick is also really good for a mystery book group in particular, I think. And that is Bluebird Bluebird by Attica Locke. I love Attica Locke. I read her, I don't know if it was her first novel, but it was an earlier one than this one called The Cutting Season that I really enjoyed also. But this one is the first in a series, and it follows a Black Texas Ranger named Darren Matthews, who, you know, he is in the middle of a personal crisis. You know, he's, you know, it's the sort of, he has to go back to his rural hometown in East Texas to kind of like figure out his life. And he returns home to this tiny town in East Texas, and it has been, there have been 2 murders in the town very recently, and it was a Black lawyer from Chicago. Yes,
Yeah.
a Black lawyer from Chicago and a local white woman. And it's sort of these 2 murders of 2 very different people kind of bring all of that simmering racial tension and economic tension to the surface. And Attica Locke writes so wonderfully that it's this like blues and inflected like feeling to this book. So it's this really great like rural Southern noir, which is apparently like what I like to read now. Like I've never read thrillers before, and suddenly this year I'm just like, give me all of them. But she's such a good writer. She writes for television, so like it's really pacey while also being like really digging into the issues. And this is the first in the series. I think there's 3 out now. So if you like this one, there's more where it came from, but there's so much to talk about. And I really recommend it. Again, that is Bird Bluebird.
The series, they follow that Texas Ranger, right?
Yeah, it's Highway 59. I was like, it's a number. The Highway 59 series. And this one won the Best Novel Edgar Award winner. So high quality mystery for your book club.
And my book club actually did read that one a couple months ago, and we had a good discussion about it.
Awesome.
And I didn't read a lot of thriller, so yeah, it was good. All right, my next one is Behold the Dreamers by Mbolo Mbu, who also has a new book coming out. They keep pushing the date on this one, but it'll be out, I think, in the spring now is what their plan is. But this one, what'd you say?
We'll see.
Yeah, right, exactly. I feel like it's been pushed twice now. I don't know. Anyway, but this one was her debut, and it is about, it's present day New York City. An immigrant family from Cameroon moves to New York, and it's, you know, their struggle, the low paying jobs, but the dream that they have, you know, that American dream that so many immigrants come with. They have a child. They end up kind of getting entwined with a wealthy family in New York. And this is all right around the time of the 2008 financial collapse. And so there's, you know, all kinds of implications for both of the families. Yeah, lots of, you know, kind of cliffhangery chapters. So it makes you want to keep reading. But really, really good, really interesting take on an immigrant experience, and the challenges and the things that, you know, not all of us think about every day. Yeah. Behold the Dreamers. It's awesome, and I can't wait to read her new one. I have it on the shelf. I got the arc of it, but have not picked it up yet because they keep pushing the date. So I'm like, okay, I'll read that later. But yeah. Behold the Dreamers.
Awesome. And that was on, was it Oprah's book club? Like it was so big.
It was. The funny thing was, when I read it, I had a friend who worked for Oprah, and I was like, Oprah said, Oprah's got to buy the rights to this one. Like she's got, like, this is like a movie, you know? And like the next month it was on the cover of Oprah's magazine. And I was like, I guess she didn't need me to tell her about it. So, yeah, Oprah pick.
Amazing. So my next one that I want to talk about is a little bit of a left turn from the other ones that I've recommended, but it's When We Left Cuba by Chanel Clayton. And this I think is really good for like a summer book club read. Like it's not fluffy, but it's I think an easier read, but that still lets you like, you know, really dig your teeth into the stuff that it's saying. But you can like take it on the beach and like feel good about it. But this follows, it's not a sequel to Chanel Clayton's first book, Next Year in Havana. It's kind of a like a companion. It follows one of the other sisters in this family who fled Cuba during the revolution and ended up kind of high society in Miami in the like 50s and 60s. And so Beatriz, who this book follows, you know, she, when her family is displaced by the Cuban Revolution, she sort of vows to basically get her family back to the island, to their roots, to their home, any way she can. So she falls into more of the like espionage, kind of counter intelligence movements of like Cold War 1960s. So like we go from Cuba to London to New York to DC, and it's sort of all during like the Bay of Pigs crisis, and it moves in and out of all of these really interesting historical events. But it is really about Beatriz, you know, coming to terms with who she is and trying to figure out what she would do to save her family versus, you know, her ideals for her country. And she also like falls in with this young, handsome American senator, and like it's very dishy and really like very lush and very romantic while still having this like edge to it that you can really sink your teeth into. So like I really enjoyed it. I think there's a lot to talk about. It's a perfect beach read, or if you want to read it in the middle of the winter to imagine that you're on the South Florida beaches, like that sounds delightful to me. So I really recommend it. It's When We Left Cuba by Chanel Clayton. Also, that cover is gorgeous. I'm a sucker for a good cover.
All right, my next one is Mother-in-Law by Sally Hepworth, who also I believe has another new book coming out soon. When I was going to pull this off the shelf at the store, I was like, where is it? Why can I not find it? It was because it was in the mystery section, and that it is a mystery, but that's just not what I really thought it was in fiction. So this one, the mother-in-law, not giving anything away, is dies. The question is it murder? And then who did it? And so really interesting. It gives the different perspectives of the different people in the family. You know, you get to see the same event from someone else's point of view. It gives you really some interesting insights into like the actions of other people and how those can be misinterpreted, and what people's real intentions are. So another one, really, I mean, I love talking about this one. And then you find out, you know, it's really focused on the daughter-in-law and the mother-in-law, but then you find these complicated relationships with the other family members as well. So really good one. Now in paperback, Mother-in-Law.
Excellent. All right, we've gotten to my hardcover wild card for your book clubs. Because, you know, I am always like, when I hear book club, I think paperback, but like some of y'all's book clubs have started doing like Where the Crawdads Sing is still in hardcover. It will never be in paperback. I'm so sorry. A lot of y'all did Gentleman in Moscow when it was still in hardcover. Someone got the new Sue Monk Kid, The Book of Longings, for their book club, and I was like, look at you guys.
And that's an awesome book. I love that one.
Yeah, that's one of your best of the year, right?
Yes, it is.
Yeah. Also, what a segue, because this is probably my favorite book of this year. and that is Hamnet by Maggie O'Farrell. And it's still only in hardcover, but I promise you it is worth it. And so this book is about, oh man, it's about so many things. But on the surface, it is a imagining of a real historical event, which is the death of the son of William Shakespeare, whose name was Hamnet, at age 12. And so it is the story of the death of Hamnet, but it becomes a book that really explores grief in all of its different forms, and love between two people, and between a mother and a child, and between twins, because Hamnet had a twin sister named Judith, which becomes a plot point in this book. And so it has two timelines. There's the timeline where Hamnet, the present day, I guess, it just follows the death of Hamnet, but then it goes back to William Shakespeare and his wife, who Anne Hathaway is what she's known as, but in the book she's named Agnes. And so it's about their love story and falling in love, and sort of their relationship and their relationship with the world. But I will say, you don't need to know anything about Shakespeare. You don't have to be a Shakespeare fan. He's never named. Like, he's always the playwright or the glovemaker's son. So, like, it is not about William Shakespeare, the myth. It is very much about the man who was married to Agnes and who was the father to Hamnet. And Maggie O'Farrell's sentences, like, if I could eat them for dinner, oh my God, I would absolutely do it. Like, the sentences that she crafts are so beautiful, like, on a molecular level, that I, like, had to reread passages because I was just like, I don't understand how anyone can write like this. And this is the one where I was like, man, we're talking about crying. I was a mess when I read this book, but it's like, it was like a good cry. It wasn't like, I feel terrible about everything and my life is awful. Like, it's so beautiful. So I think there's so much to unpack in this book and to talk about in this book, that I think it is worth getting it in hardcover before it comes out in paperback. Also buy it in paperback, but like, this is definitely my favorite book of the year. So I couldn't not recommend it. I'm explaining it so poorly, but just on this one. Hamnet by Maggie O'Farrell is so good. It's so good.
Awesome. I do need to read that one. And you know, hardcover, if you're buying for gifts,
Exactly.
I know we do think paperback for book club, but we're talking about gifts for book club readers. So, and so I'll go to Trisha's recommendations, and one of those is a hardcover because it just came out. Good Morning Monster by Catherine Gildner. And I've heard Trish talk about this one since she read it I think it was a couple months ago. But it is the story, 5 inspiring stories of overcoming abuse through therapy. So this is the therapist. It's, remind me of Lori Gottlieb's last year, the Maybe You Should Talk to Someone, which was so popular. And I think,
I don't think we have.
I'm sure it's back there.
Yeah,
it's really good. I read that one. And then I think there's another one, Group, that just came out that also really interesting looks inside therapy and how people heal. Is that?
We just got happy. Oh, and she also pulled out Group.
There you go.
Which is one of Reese's book club books.
Right. So they're all really good. I mean, you get to kind of glimpse inside someone else's real life and how they deal with their issues. So this was one of Trisha's recommendations, Good Morning Monster. And I know we're also almost out of time. And so her other one actually comes out next week, Miss Benson's Beetle.
Ooh.
Rachel Joyce. I have this on my list. I'm sorry?
I was like, I didn't know Rachel Joyce had a new book coming out. Thanks, Trish.
Yeah, and straight to paperback. So I like the straight to paperback books. books. Love them. But Trish said this is good for those who like the old curmudgeon books, but they're not sappy and filled with adventure. So this one's been on my list since I saw it coming out, and it's been on our staff pre-order recommendations list on the website for a while too. So Two Spirited Women, One Journey to the Edge of the World.
Ooh.
And I love this cover too.
Yeah, that's exciting.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Do you have any more? Or are we done for
I didn't have any more that I had prepared. I can always pull stuff out of the bookshelf, but it looks like we came in right at half an hour, which like, wow, go us.
Yay us.
But thank you all for who tuned in with us live. I think this is also going to be available to watch later in case, you know, you couldn't make it or you had to dip out. And Amber is going to put the list of books that we talked about in this video in the event listing. And then we'll tweet it, I'm sure, and put it everywhere.
And I'm just going to drop that link in here right now.
Awesome.
Because when we get off of here, I'm going to go to this page and update with all the books.
Woo! Awesome. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. Again, we will see you next week. I believe it is the biography and memoir office hours next week.
First one in November. It's escapism.
Just kidding.
Escapism. Rose wants to be somewhere else.
Oh, that is the dream. But yes, so awesome. Thank you so much, Amber, for joining me. Thank you everyone at home, and we will see you next time.
Bye.